1978, a secret memo was passed to then President Jimmy Carter, which outlined 4 steps to control African Americans in this country. One of the 4 steps was to, and I quote, support actions designed to sharpen social stratification in the black community, which would lead to a widening and perpetuation of the gap between successful educated blacks and the poor, giving rise to growing antagonism between different black groups and weakening of the movement as a whole. As many of us know, there is not that much distinction between successful educated blacks and the poor. I was a successful educated black person in corporate America for 30 years. Had I not received a paycheck on Friday evening, I would have been broke by Saturday morning. So there is no difference. But regardless, the memo that was passed was not the work of a radical militiaman. The memo was not the work of one that does target practice on African Americans in the woods in Idaho. This memo was from the then chairman of the National Security Council. Today, 135 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, 44 years after Brown versus Topeka, 40 years after the Montgomery Accord, 34 years after the Civil Rights of 1964, millions of descendants of former slaves reside in a mental prison. I call it the prison that Willie Lynch built. I suggest that it is ridiculous to remain in a prison with no cells, where there are no guards, and where the warden does not even come to work.
All right.
I suggest to you that the task and the challenge ahead is to free ourselves from that prison that Willie Lynch built. I submit to you that if you know your history and you know your Bible, Lynch's letter will not be good enough to line your garbage can with. I submit to you that if you systematically travel to the intersections of Booker and Kentucky, listen to and live the word, that freedom will be yours, because with God all things are possible.
Yes.
We must cease the harmful rhetoric that causes us to deny and distrust each other because of superficial things. How can we look down upon one with darker skin when we know full well that the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice? How can we degrade our brother because of his kinky hair when Jesus was described as having hair like lamb's wool, and he never claimed to use Revlon? Who are you to decree that short men have a problem when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood only 5'7" high? And was not David shorter than Goliath? I am tired, and as my mother would say, sick and tired of African Americans delivering a knockout punch to their own brothers and sisters. But being sick and tired does not accomplish anything. What you must become is you must become sick and tired of being sick and tired. That is when you will take the strength and the power and the purpose that God granted you and begin to make a difference. We cannot rewrite our history using the blood of our people as ink. We cannot rewrite our history upon the dirty linen of defamation. We cannot wash dirty hands and polluted minds with the tears of our brothers and sisters. We cannot continue to create and endorse negative mental images of ourselves by having our lips, as Dr. King would describe, dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. That is why I published a book entitled Success is You, challenging you to look within yourself for the strength and courage that God gave you. That is why I published a book entitled The Power of Association, calling upon you to absorb and to share the blessings God granted us. That is why Diane and I publish Visions newsletter. That is why I'm a contributing writer for Purpose magazine, a writer for Black Enterprise magazine, sharing myself with a growing international audience.